As we move into blue-red in mid BO1 Limited, we'll find that this is a deck that has the lowest density of creatures, and it's just loaded with spells. You'll also see some cards that are just going to be in any blue deck or red deck, and then some cards that are a little more particular to this archetype. So looking at the creatures, ideally because this is such a spell-dense deck, you can land at least one Delver of Secrets. If you're looking at 10 to 12 plus spells, you'll probably be able to flip it pretty soon. But if you're able to just control the opponent's board and establish some type of threat, even just pinging in for one for a turn or two can be useful until it flips and becomes quite an annoyance to the opponent. Festival Crasher is a common that can play very well in this archetype. Because it's so spell dense, you're looking at potentially pumping this, 2 or 3 times on a turn where you can get in a clean attack. Opponent, has their shields down, tapped out of mana, doesn't have good blocks potentially, or you have some way to maybe take care of those blockers either by bouncing them or killing them prior to an attack. Because you will ideally have some burn spells. A Flame Channeler can be a useful uncommon, potentially flipping it, and then at that point you can use it to gain some advantage with this ability, removing a flame counter and playing the exile card from the top. And then 2/2 for 2, solid, a bear. But ideally, if you can take out a threat, you get a 3/3 for 2 mana, which can play up. And then probably one of the 2 strongest uncommons in the deck, if you can land one, is going to be Thermal Alchemist. You're pinging for at least 1 each turn, but ideally, if you can string together some cantrips or other cards that are low cost but deal damage to the opponent, you can ping for multiple damage at end of turn. So it's gives you some evasion, some late game closing power. Organ Horde is going to be in all your blue decks, super solid. But Tavern Ruffian, generally speaking, isn't a good card. But in this archetype, where you often are able to pass turn without playing anything because of the density of instance, it can play up as a 6/5 for 4 oftentimes. So you don't really want to load your deck with Tavern Ruffians, but it is something you can usually get last or next to last pick that can play up. So in terms of spells in the deck, a spell you want to really try and get if you can is Seize the Storm. Being able to drop this and have a 6/6 to 10/10 maybe, and then flash it back is how you're probably going to close your games or get close to closing the games, along with Thermal Alchemist. You do want to try and find some ways to control the opponent's board, since you're not going to be trading very often because you're low creature density. So removal spells like Moonrager Slash, maybe Neonate's Rush. If you can find a way to ping some of the annoying X1s, it also gives you a cantrip. Can be useful. And then a little bit of normally tempo advantage with the bounce spells like Fading Hope and Revenge of the Drowned. For you, it's more just buying time because you're not really looking to tempo the opponent out in this type of deck. But they're still super strong. Does give you some pseudo burn when you get a 2/2 Decayed Zombie that they're probably not going to block. It's almost like bouncing creature and doing only 2 damage. So it's a fairly straightforward deck, but it is a deck that you do want to make sure is open. It is kind of a mid-tier because you are looking at needing uncommons to really make it tick, like the Thermal Alchemist, the Seize the Storm, ideally Delver of Secrets. But it can come together. You just need to really find a way to get into the deck to kind of have a shot with this being playable compared to some of the value engines like the blue whites and the blue blacks, or some of the decks that can really go wide, like white green, for example.